This is a practice essay in response to the question, why does Hamlet take so long to avenge the killing of his father? So I just thought I'd show you what's done well and what needs some clarification. Hamlet, like all Shakespeare's tragedies, features an eponymous, fatally flawed hero who drives the plot to explore the complexity of the human condition. However, contrary to popular belief, Hamlet's indecision is not a straightforward excuse for his inability to rapidly avenge the killing of his father and return order to the court of Denmark, plunged into catastrophe by Claudius's act of regicide. So in other words, she's saying there are significant valid reasons why he doesn't enact revenge swiftly. In fact, having been ordered to revenge his father's foul and most unnatural murder, Hamlet faces all the uncertainty and contradiction pervading the Elizabethan court, Shakespeare's context for the play. And I just made a note that needs clarifying because it's not actually set in Elizabethan times. It's really set in sort of a medieval Denmark. But of course it was written / produced in Elizabethan England. Hamlet struggled to understand and balance the contradictions within himself, and permeating the wider cultural situation means that until he can right his own imbalances, he cannot return order to his wider world through avenging his father. I commented that wider cultural situation is vague, and so that's where I think she needs to be specific and mention the corrupt court, which is ruled over by a murderous king, his uncle. But what she's getting at here is that Hamlet cannot hope to enact revenge or to act upon the ghost's command until he's sorted himself out, until he's addressed or reconciled the imbalances or contradictions within his own character. The conflict between Christian values, placing God as the perfect judge, and cultural ideas of personal revenge, Hamlet's difficulty in balancing thought and action, and his preoccupation with the women around him and his own feminine aspects all mean he delays in achieving revenge for his father's death. Now, that last sentence was convoluted, too many clauses strung together. She also does clearly list the main areas of the essay that she's going to then develop. So she's going to look at that conflict between the human desire to want to exact revenge versus the Christian concept that God is the true avenger, not mankind. She's then going to look at the fact that he cannot balance thought and action, so that internal conflict, and then she's going to look at his preoccupation with women and also the way he feminizes the weaknesses that he perceives in his own character, and all of those aspects make it very difficult for him to act promptly. So it's a nice, clear, logical introduction. Then she goes into her first body paragraph. The underlying tension between the Christian belief in God as a perfect avenger and the classical legacy of personal revenge is reflected in Hamlet's internal struggle and inability to actively and consistently follow through with vengeance. Personal revenge, I commented, was perhaps not the clear enough term to use. Blood vengeance might be clearer. It's that idea that if someone does you wrong, you pay them back, you do wrong to them. And she might even want to make it even clearer that by classical, ancient Greek, ancient Roman. In fact, even contradictions between the Catholic view that the ghost is likely to be an extravagant and erring spirit suffering in purgatory, and the Protestant belief that it was likely to be a goblin damned, an agent of hell, mean that Hamlet is unable to initially trust the ghost's account or fulfill its demand for vengeance. That's an excellent point, because it's saying it's not reasonable, really, given the different belief systems in the play. So Protestantism and Catholicism to expect Hamlet to act swiftly, because there is a confusion and a lot is made of the fact that the ghost could be a goblin damned. It could be out to trick him. Horatio warns Hamlet that this is the case. So, that's a really good point to make. She continues, however, once he has confirmed the ghost's accusation of Claudius, I don't think that's quite accurate. It's more that once he's confirmed that Claudius is guilty, not that he's confirming that the ghost has made an accusation. So just watch the wording. So once he's confirmed the ghost's accusation of Claudius through staging the play within the play, Hamlet must choose between the Christian worldview, which asserts that vengeance is purely the role of God. I would say the responsibility of God would be more accurate. And the classical belief, in which academic Grace Tiffany reminds us, revenge implies not a salutary humiliation, but a spectacular bloodshed and death. Now, that's a bit of a convoluted sentence, so I would suggest simplifying that. It's good to quote an academic like that. If you can give us a little bit more information, maybe footnote the particular essay or article as well, that would be good. But it's a nice quotation because it's telling us that the classical Greek concept of revenge was about bloodshed and death. It wasn't about feeling that one had some noble, God-given purpose. Furthermore, while Hamlet appears to reject divine authority when he declares there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, that he also refuses to kill a praying Claudius, as he is fit and seasoned for his passage to heaven, suggests Hamlet cannot totally let go of his Christian beliefs in order to exact revenge. It is this conflict between religion and personal revenge that prevents Hamlet from acting decisively to kill Claudius and avenge his father's death. Now, that's a pretty good practice essay body paragraph. In terms of an examination essay, it needs a little bit more detail, a little bit more work in exploring this idea that Hamlet, on the one hand, appears to reject divine authority. So I would see that there are perhaps better quotations to use than the one that she takes from Act 2, Scene 2. You could also, for example, you could look at the to be or not to be soliloquy, and you could look at the very first soliloquy about the two solid flesh as well. And also, I think that idea that while on the one hand she is saying he rejects God, on the other hand he doesn't appear to be rejecting God when he's refusing to kill Claudius in the act of prayer. She's identifying that as a contradiction. And I just think there are more examples. There's more that you can do there. And I think also, unless she does this towards the end of the essay, she does need to point out that ultimately Hamlet does appear to hand the job over to a divine providence that shapes our ends, and she could point out how there Hamlet's using the image of a stonemason carving out his revenge as a stonemason would hone a piece of stone. Alright, so when we go into the next body paragraph, Hamlet's difficulty in achieving the internal balance of thought and action also delays him from exacting revenge as he struggles to reconcile his academic character with his father's orders. Academic character is a little vague. His intellectualism, his predilection for contemplation. She then talks about the fact that he's got 7 major soliloquies, a fact which in itself identifies him as a scholar, and shows that Hamlet himself is aware that this tendency to think and to talk and to reflect is regrettable. It's a roadblock for him, because he castigates himself for being like a whore, unpacking his heart with words. Moreover, when he does act impulsively, stabbing Polonius during the scene in Gertrude's closet, he still fails to take revenge on the correct person. Hamlet's tendency to prevaricate finds counterpoints in Laertes, Fortinbras and Horatio, who present alternative embodiments of manhood. Now, it might seem a little bit irrelevant to veer off and talk about Laertes and Fortinbras and Horatio. However, it could be a good thing as long as you're using these other three characters to show what Hamlet should be. And I would suggest perhaps that Horatio, given that Hamlet praises Horatio for being balanced and being even-tempered and for being an all-round sort of stable person, is probably the best one to bring in at this point. Laertes' impulsive and obsessive pursuit of personal revenge for the death of Polonius, to the point where he swears he would cut Hamlet's throat in the church, a deeply sacrilegious act, suggests that excessively impetuous and vengeful men also come to a bloody end, in this case poisoned by his own sword. So in other words, she's saying, well, we don't want to be like Laertes, however we also don't want to be like Fortinbras, the other extreme. So nonetheless, to be of unimproved metal, hot and full, as Fortinbras is famously depicted, ultimately leads to a better end than Hamlet's words without thought. So that's a nice integration of quotation there. Given that Fortinbras is able to avenge his father, reclaim his birthright, and take the crown of Denmark. On the other hand, Horatio, as the only surviving member of the Danish court by the end of the play, is portrayed as the truly ideal man. Although Hamlet insists to Guildenstern, "You cannot play upon me," only one whose blood and judgment are so well commingled, as Hamlet praises Horatio, is not a pipe for fortune's finger. Hamlet's contemporaries provide a mirror that highlights the verbosity impeding Hamlet from achieving revenge. So I think it does work to compare Hamlet to the other male characters in proving that Hamlet lacks balance. But what I think she hasn't quite nailed in this paragraph is showing in a little bit more detail, beyond a mere quotation like this one here or this one here, that Hamlet tends to talk and hesitate. So I think there's more there. For example, she could, look at the specific scenes in the play where he appears to waste a lot of time talking. She could look at the fact that he is not just talking, but he's talking about matters which don't have a direct, immediate relevance to taking revenge. For example, his soliloquies. Now, I won't go through the rest of this practice. I will just read the start of the next and final body paragraph so you can see the topic sentence. Finally, until Hamlet can expunge the woman within and make peace with the women without, which is quite a neat way of expressing it, he is unable to dedicate himself to the task of revenge. So it's a very neatly structured practice essay. As I said, it's a good framework. What it now needs is a bit more depth and detail.